Welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you. Thanks for checking out the channel. Hope everybody's doing fantastic out there. Your Miami Heat. Get ready for the Atlanta Hawks later on tonight in this critical Final Four games for Miami, as they have been. It's been tough. It's been tough sledding right now for your Miami Heat, and they are going into this game tonight, and they have a couple of injuries that are of note. One, they have to wait on the status of Terry Rozier to not go through shoot-around today. And not only that, but he is dealing with his neck thing. He said it's a game-time decision. The last game he had told reporters that he probably shouldn't even play, but he wanted to be out there. And, you're hopeful for Terry that everything gets going all right. But similarly, Duncan Robinson today was ruled out, and he is apparently not really sure when he's going to be back, and it's a real bummer for Miami. You guys, I think, if you know me, I'm very optimistic when it comes to this team. I like to look at the glass very half full, but I think I'm also very fair about things, and I think that I am hopeful that that proverbial playoff switch will come for them, especially for Jimmy. And get these things going. But, man, Duncan Robinson, definitely, I think everybody had noticed the most obvious thing when he got hurt over this back injury that happened with that messed him up and took him out. He has not looked anywhere near the same since he has come back. And, just a guy who had been having such a tremendous season for Miami. You had thought about how well he was shooting the basketball. He was getting back to his elite shooting, but we had also seen a Duncan Robinson who had diversified his game and just looked like he was playing with just a gnarlier attitude. A guy who just seems, it's crazy to think, but like Duncan Robinson is like a grizzled veteran, and he had added so much to his repertoire. Really been conducive to some of Miami's best stretches when he and was one of the best indicators when Duncan had success. This year, this team had success, and this injury has been a tough blow for Miami to weather, and especially not having him back. Yes, they have gotten Tyler Hero back, and that's been nice, but not having a healthy Duncan Robinson has been pretty tough for Miami, and not having him to the fullest of his abilities. But over these last 5 where he's come back, mind you, they've gotten some reinforcements because he has been struggling to find his shot from downtown. He is, I think, 6 of 26 are the final numbers on him over these 5 since he's returned. Clearly not what he was in the early goings of the year, where he was an over 40% three-point shooter. So valuable to Miami. And I got to be honest with you, man. There are injuries you can take and you can withstand and you can be all right. And I think everybody kind of took even for granted the Tyler Hero thing and said, with Tyler out, they've done it without Tyler before. They can be all right. But when you talk about what Miami was going to have to go into this postseason with, not having your best shooter is really, really a killer for Miami. We had look at this past game for an example, right? Where you are going 0 for 8 against the Pacers to start the game off, not being able to get those shots to drop. They're momentum shifters. They're deflating if you can't make three-pointers. And to not have Duncan, who just seems like he's got so much more to his game, that he's bringing more to the table, to not have that, that's a big blow to Miami, man. These were his quotes on where things are up and where they are for his timeline. Duncan Robinson was ruled out for Tuesday's game. This is from Anthony Chang of the Miami Herald. And his status for the rest of the season and the postseason is now up in the air. He said, quote, "I'm not entirely sure when asked when he'll be back. I'm trying to take it day by day right now, keep an open mind, and just how I feel and everything. But most important thing is just trying to get to a point where I can be available and help in any capacity, whatever that looks like going forward." And, yeah, Duncan had just been really, really laboring. I think everybody could tell by a guy who's very active on the floor, the way he moves around, the way he cuts to the rim. The guy just never seems like he stands still. He runs a damn marathon during a game. You just didn't see that same guy. He just didn't look like himself. And Duncan Robinson was just playing with such a confidence before this injury happened. And it sucked to see it over this last handful of games that it wasn't there. He was asked about returning from the back injury after his initial 5-game absence. He says, I just wanted to be back out there and available in some capacity. Obviously, I just wasn't able to fully feel like myself, to be myself, and that kind of had also exacerbated a little bit, which we knew going in was a potential risk, but wanted to at least go down swinging to some extent. But now, unfortunately, not necessarily back to ground zero with it, but just to take a step back and kind of calm down again. And so, yeah, it's just really tough. It was a really tough thing to see. Spo said that you could see it the other night in Indiana. He just didn't have the mobility you're accustomed to seeing, so we're going to recalibrate. And so we're kind of back to seeing that Duncan, seeing if he can get back healthy and getting back to himself. But look, man, there was a time this year where everybody would agree that, the best two players in the Heat, we all know, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo. But you could look to the majority of the season, say who was the third best player on this Heat team, and I think you'd have a hard argument to find it be anybody else but Duncan Robinson. Knowing that Tyler Hero was out as long as he was this year, Kevin Love, of course, has those spot importances. Jaime Jaquez a little bit up and down. Terry Rozier really hasn't been here the whole year, so I'm talking about that through line of consistency. With all the injuries that they had dealt with all of the ins and outs that everybody had dealt with, what's something that you could count on? You could count on Duncan Robinson being able to provide you some offensive punch. And usually the games where he went off, it was a great indicator on the success of the Miami Heat. And so this is a tough one, man. This really is tough. You're going into a playoffs, which what it sounds like is, if he missed 5 games already, well, there's 4 games left, plus a play-in. This, by the way, why I thought it's so important to not have games next week to get into the playoffs, that you wanted to have that time to get yourself physically right. I think everybody could look at this Miami Heat team right now. You could see how Duncan Robinson was laboring. You could see Jimmy Butler doesn't quite have the full confidence in his body. Look how his jump shot has looked. The type of way he's pacing his game. Hell, Bam has been dealing with stuff. Jaquez, Kevin Love is dealing with a damn foot and arm ahead. Terry Rozier now has a bust neck. The only guy now who seems like he's good to go is lo and behold, the guy who's basically gotten to miss the last 6 weeks with his foot injury. This is a grind. It's a grind. It's a killer. You can see all around the league, there's a bunch of teams dealing with injuries and dealing with stuff, but you were going into this postseason, and there are definitely questions that are valid around this Miami Heat team, but you always wonder, all right, who are going to be the guys that you can rely upon? And Duncan for sure was going to be one of those guys, whether it was starting, which it seemed like it was going to be starting going forward. That's the other thing that was interesting here. Duncan had done such a great job, basically had knocked Tyler Hero back to the reserve role. Would imagine Tyler's going to go back to starting. Not 100%. It probably depends whether or not Terry Rozier is going to go tonight. If Terry doesn't, I guess you could think of putting Caleb Martin in the starting lineup. Maybe Jaime Jaquez Jr., although his shooting has been pretty abysmal lately. Maybe you want to go in a direction where you have Haywood Highsmith if you really just want to go defense. So you could play with that backcourt. You don't necessarily have to go to Tyler Hero if Terry is able to go. But if Terry's not able to go, he's for sure going to be in there. But to be at this spot right now where you lose someone the quality of Duncan Robinson, it's tough, man. It's a really tough thing to say. Anthony writes, before being sidelined with the back injury, Robinson averaging 13.5 points a game, 3 assists while shooting 45.7% from the field and 40.5% from 3 on over 7 attempts a game. So that was a tough thing. And for the guys who shoot that many threes, he had the third best percentage, only behind Kyrie and C.J. McCollum. Not a joker who you're losing, dude. This is not. Yeah, you didn't look. You didn't have this version, the guy that came back, but now what you're hopeful for is, okay, figure out these 4 games, see where this lands. This went to why I was hopeful that they could avoid Boston in the first round, because they knew Miami was still working through some stuff, and you don't want to face Boston working through some stuff. You're still going to need probably superhero performances by Jimmy Butler to beat them anyway, but you would have wanted with every other East team working through stuff, and they're the only team that's not, you would have wanted the grace of a series to get things right there. This is a terrible blow for Miami. There's really not another way to spin it. So they're going to need Tyler to step up in a huge way. Terry and Tyler, assuming you can get Terry back to his full strength. But losing Duncan Robinson for this team, man, you think about the mentality this guy was playing with, the effectiveness that he had with other guys on the floor, how he's such a boost. Defenses, they do everything they can to try and slow him up. The physicality, they play with him to try and slow him down. There's no way to mince it, man. Not having Duncan Robinson is a disaster for the Miami Heat's playoff chances.